I feel like I'm one of the few who actually has a little bit of optimism that this game is going to be close on Sunday.
Tell us why. Tell us why.
I've got them covering. I don't have them winning, but I do have them covering because I think this is, in some ways, this is a relatively soft landing for them week one because I like some of the matchups and I like the spot as it relates to the Bengals. So the Bengals don't start well with Joe Burrow. They haven't for really since the time he entered the league. Since 2020, they're 7-8-1. It's in September, and their winning percentage is even worse than that. I saw Mike Reese tweet today in the first 2 weeks of the season specifically. So slow starting team. That's good. Quarterback coming off a major injury. That's good for the Patriots.
1-4 in their last 5 openers.
There you go. T. Higgins dealing with a hamstring injury. Looks like he might not even be practicing today.
Well, how about the rhythm of him and Chase, too? And I know they played a ton together, and it's like riding a bike, but still, it's predicated on being perfect.
Well, timing, rhythm, how about conditioning for a guy who hasn't practiced all summer? So all of those things, to me, make the Bengals a little bit softer now than they will be perhaps mid-season.
Yep.
And then when it comes to the other side of the ball, I think the Patriots are going to be able to run it. This was one of the worst run defenses in football last year in Cincinnati. They were 28th in run defense success rate. Really bad. They were bottom 5 in the league in terms of yards allowed per game on the ground. So this is a Patriots team where the one thing they might be able to do is run the football a little bit because arguably their best offensive player is Ramondre Stevenson. And if you can get some sort of movement at the line of scrimmage, which is a question to me, everything that is related to that Patriots offensive line is a question to me right now. But if you want to be the team that you have told us you want to be, and you want to ground and pound, and you want to base everything off of your run game, this isn't a bad defense to see. I think they might even be worse than they were last year because arguably their best run defender last year was DJ Reader. He's gone. So you take the best run defender from a bad run defense, where do they end up as far as that aspect of that side of the ball for them? So, again, not picking them to win. I am picking the Patriots to cover, though.
Let me ask you specifically about Jacoby Brissett. What do you expect to see from him in the early going of this season? We've talked so much about the decision to go with him over Drake May, but now that we're here, what do you expect to see out of this guy?
Somebody who takes care of the football. I mean, I think that is one thing that they can rely on. That is one reason why the offensive production for this year's Patriots should be better than last year's. And I think pretty easily. And I understand there are still all sorts of personnel questions, not only on the offensive line, but even in the receiving corps. The change at quarterback alone and the number of turnovers you should be able to eliminate because of that has to make them better. It has to make them more efficient. It has to allow them to put together longer drives and potentially end those in field goals. So for me, that's where I start. And you look at it, according to Pro Football Reference, among quarterbacks in NFL history with at least 1,500 attempts, Jacoby Brissett's interception rate is tied for first all time with Aaron Rodgers. 1.4% interception rate. So that's what you expect him to do. You expect him to understand what they're going to be doing on that side of the ball, and you expect him to take care of the ball. And that should lead to better things. Explosive things, probably not, but better things offensively than what we've seen the last couple of years.
All right, Phil Perry is with us for the hour, 617-779-0985. We'll continue to take your calls. We're going to get more on this game and on this season. And one of the things you and I were talking about last night, Phil, was just sort of the mood going into this year. Expectations are very low for this team. It's a weird vibe. And I joked with you, I didn't like your energy a couple of minutes ago. I don't like my own energy on this thing. I feel defeated about this. I feel like they're going to lose a lot of games this year, which is why I've said just don't embarrass yourselves. That's important for this team. Don't be an embarrassment. You can lose. Losing's one thing. Doing it in an embarrassing fashion is just the thing I don't think they can afford with a rookie head coach.
I think that's a major factor, and it's a significant point that you raise, especially as you're trying to establish something. We know the players appreciate Gerard Mayo. The reviews have generally been very positive from the beginning of training camp to now. When you ask guys in there, guys who matter, right? Like, we're not asking Javon Baker what he thinks of Gerard Mayo right now. But you talk to Jabril Peppers, you talk to Devon Godshot, you talk to David Andrews. These guys like what's gone on to this point. But in order to keep that positive momentum going, and to get the buy-in that you're looking for as a first-time head coach, I think you have to experience some level of success, don't you, Zoe?
Yeah.
And it might not be wins, but some level of success, some tangible progress that has been shown that the players can see and sink their teeth into in these first few weeks in order to get that buy-in that you're looking for as a first-time guy.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of standing around and watching. And even though the approval rate is there, I think it's the element of the unknown, like the lack of not knowing what your chemistry is going to be this year, what's your environment going to be. I know vibes are good, but it's about, you get judged on games and who's going to be your playmakers. So it's going to be fun to see who steps up to make plays offensively. How much more of it is going to be carried with Ramondre Stevenson. Can the offensive line gain confidence together blocking in the run game? If you're not going to be great pass protectors, can you be great run blockers? Can you win other ways? And they got to figure out what that is going to be and sink your teeth into, what works and what doesn't work. Get away from that stuff.
What's interesting is that vibes are good, but I want to be clear in what I've heard in terms of how those vibes have been generated. I think a lot of people are assuming this is going to be a softer, kinder, warmer, fuzzier locker room and overall facility with Gerard Mayo versus Bill Belichick. And I do think personal relationships are going to matter more.
Yeah.
Call it what it is with this regime. I would not say that this has been an easy camp. In fact, I would go the other way. And I would say some of those names that I just mentioned in terms of guys that really like Gerard Mayo and how things have gone would tell you, thank God we had a week off before week 1 of the regular season because we were beat up. That was a tough camp in terms of the running they're expected to do, in terms of the full contact hitting that they did at times during the practices. I mean, you guys were out there. You saw some of it. That was a more physical camp than we've seen in years here in New England. And they are driving these guys hard when it comes to the conditioning, which we'll see how that plays out week 1 for them if that work has paid off. In the weight room, Mayo has been very open talking about how, hey, if we want to be a tough team, that's where it has to start. His brother, Deron Mayo, is actually running the weight room now. Yeah. He's the head strength and conditioning coach. But they're still doing a lot of the things that they've done when this was considered a really hard place to work. The weight room was one of the reasons why. And they're doing some of the same things, i.e., a lot of squatting. Remember when Rob Gronkowski retired essentially because he didn't want to squat anymore? Like, they're still doing that stuff. Offensive linemen with 500 pounds on their back because they're squatting heavy. They're doing things that a lot of teams, generally speaking, don't do, and it's hard on the players. And yet, they still, at least at this point, have some of the buy-in that Gerard Mayo needs to maintain this first month of the season, especially in my opinion.
Hey, if you like that clip, check out more videos from Zolak and Bertrand right here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.